My Mister is one of the greatest K-dramas ever made, and one area where it shines brighter than the rest is in its side characters. So often, supporting characters wind up as two-dimensional plot devices, but in My Mister, they have fully fleshed out stories of their own. Today, I'm going to shine a light on those stories. I'll timestamp each character section, so feel free to jump around to your favorites, or watch them all to see how their journeys intersect with the themes of My Mister. At its core, My Mister is an examination of the relationship between class, morality, and happiness. If you watched my last video, you already know that according to My Mister, the rich often lose morality through greed and ego, while the poor lose it through desperation and need. Only in the middle class is morality truly possible, but even then, it's incredibly difficult to maintain. We see this clearly with our first side character, Park Sang-hoon. Sang-hoon is the older brother of our main character, Park Dong-hoon. In the past, he was a successful businessman who was coerced into early retirement. He used that retirement money to start his own business, which failed, spiraling him into debt. Through Sang-hoon, we see another theme that runs throughout My Mister, the plight of the middle-aged. The world values the young, particularly corporations, and once middle age sets in, people are often cast aside and treated as though they've outlived their usefulness. At one point, Sang-hoon tells his brother to make a horror movie for middle-aged Korean men, but the movie he describes is really just his own life. A man loses his job and sinks into poverty. He wakes up frozen in bed, unable to move, watching the sun go down. It's a perfect reflection of how Sang-hoon sees himself. He has fallen to the bottom and is frozen there, watching the sun set on his own life. In his version of the story, the second half takes a darker turn. The man becomes the villain, climbs the social ladder, teaches everybody who looked down on him a lesson, and dies. It's a striking moment because the show once again explicitly links wealth and status with moral compromise. But as I mentioned, immoral behavior also comes from the lower class, right where Sang-hoon is stuck. Feeling hopeless and humiliated, he steals money from his daughter's wedding, mooches off his mother and younger brother, and drinks to excess to try and dull the pain. But the truth of Sang-hoon is much deeper than his failures. He's a deeply sensitive man who cries easily and loves fiercely. When Dong-hoon's marriage begins to fall apart, Sang-hoon blames himself and desperately tries to fix the relationship. And while his fantasy version of himself dreams about revenge, his real desires are surprisingly simple. He wants to give his mother a lavish funeral, and he wants to make a memory he'll never forget. Throughout the show, he repeatedly says that he doesn't remember anything from his past other than shitting and eating. It's a crude joke, but it's also tied to one of the show's central ideas. Happiness doesn't come from success. It comes from loving wholeheartedly and honestly. Sang-hoon was once successful, but that success left him with no meaningful memories, just years blurring together into eating, sleeping, and working. He eventually finds happiness through something far less glamorous: humility. He takes a cleaning job. He's demeaned by a wealthy client and forced to kneel before him, something his mother witnesses. And the humiliation is crushing, but he sticks with it. And as he slowly climbs back towards stability, back towards that fragile middle ground where morality becomes possible, something else returns as well: his happiness. He carefully saves his money, and when Ji-an, our other main character's grandmother, dies, the funeral is as meager as he always feared his own mother's might be. Though he barely knows the girl, he uses those savings to give her grandmother a proper, lavish funeral. It's the best moment of his life. By loving someone wholeheartedly, he finally creates the kind of memory he spent years searching for. He fulfills one more dream as well. He and his brothers buy fancy suits, put on sunglasses, rent a luxury car, and take a 3-day trip together. But the joy isn't in the extravagance. As children, some of his happiest memories came from watching Hong Kong movies with his brothers. He wants, just wants, to live like those movie characters alongside the people he loves most. Together, they create one more beautiful memory. And like all of Sang-hoon's happiest moments, it's rooted in love. The next character stories are so intertwined, they need to be told together. First, there's Ki-hoon, the youngest of the three brothers. In his past, he occupied the opposite end of the economic spectrum. He was considered a genius director, a rising star with prestige, influence, and status. Following the show's themes, when you're at the top, morality begins to disappear, and Ki-hoon was no exception. He was cruel to his leading actress, Choi Yoo-ra, berating her for her acting skills and treating everyone around him with disdain and disrespect. The film eventually got axed, bringing the hatchet down on his career as well. Now jobless, Ki-hoon lives off his mother, spending his days drinking, lashing out, and nursing old wounds. Whenever opportunities arise in the film industry, he rejects them because he feels they're beneath him. At one point, he even punches a director who offers him a lower-level position. His fatal flaw is pride, and it's not until he humbles himself that his life begins to improve. He agrees to join Sang-hoon in the cleaning business, and the work begins to reinvigorate him. He has purpose again. He's moving, working, contributing, and that's when Yoo-ra re-enters his life. In one of the buildings they clean, there's a woman who repeatedly throws up in the stairwell after drunken nights out. When a neighbor pounds on her door to berate her, Ki-hoon discovers it's Yoo-ra. He gives her his card and tells her to call him instead of being torn down by neighbors. Though he was once cruel to her, Yoo-ra starts showing up at his cleaning office, wanting to spend time with him. Their dynamic is immediately awkward because Yoo-ra has a habit of stating uncomfortable truths out loud. Not out of cruelty, but out of a kind of innocence and genuine inability to read the room. She cheerfully proclaims how happy she is that Ki-hoon failed. Not as a jab. She's simply relieved that their film's collapse wasn't entirely her fault. Ki-hoon's first instinct is rage, but over time, her innocence and devotion begin to wear him down, and he starts to fall for her. As their relationship develops, we begin to understand that Ki-hoon's rage isn't always about ego. It's the result of emotions he simply can't handle, especially the pain of his loved ones. When his brothers are insulted or physically hurt, he wants to destroy the men responsible. And when the director of Yoo-ra's new film starts treating her exactly the way he once did, his instinct is to go beat that man too. But then something changes. Watching footage of the director interacting with Yoo-ra, Ki-hoon sees himself. And for the first time, he's forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Yoo-ra was never a bad actress. He was terrified. Terrified he would never live up to the title of genius director. That fear led him to sabotage his own production by sabotaging her. He recognized that she lacked resilience and knew that if he browbeat her enough, she'd freeze up and perform poorly. Then he could blame her for the failure instead of himself. And he admits all of it, to himself and to Yoo-ra. Even more importantly, he helps teach her how to stand up for herself. In helping her heal, he begins to heal too. His anger slowly disappears. Eventually, the two break up. But when we see them on the phone afterward, Ki-hoon isn't yelling. He's crying. The mask is gone. He's finally honest about what he's actually feeling. Later, after watching her new movie, he comes home and begins writing a screenplay about their relationship. He no longer fears failure or judgment. He's ready to start over. Not as the genius director he imagined himself to be, but as a better man. Finally, we have Jeonghee, a lifelong friend of the three brothers who runs the neighborhood bar where everybody gathers to drink away their sorrows. And Jeonghee drinks right alongside them. Of all the characters in My Mister, she may be the clearest example of someone who has mastered half of the formula for happiness, while completely missing the other half. She knows how to love with her whole heart, but she doesn't know how to live honestly. Years ago, the love of her life disappeared without warning and became a monk, leaving her without closure. She's been pining after him ever since, desperately lonely and deeply unhappy, but unwilling to admit it to her friends or herself. She tells people she bought a house, when in reality, she lives in a tiny room above her bar. She drinks to excess every night and stumbles upstairs telling herself she's not a mess, slurring her words as she washes her face and tries to will okayness into existence through sheer force of denial. Whenever anyone mentions the monk, she becomes angry. His name is taboo. Even though the entire friend group grew up with him, everyone has learned to pretend he doesn't exist when she's around. Like everyone else in My Mister, Jeonghee only begins to find happiness when she finally becomes honest with herself. One day, she decides to visit the temple. When she arrives, the monk is teaching a group of Buddhists a lesson. He tells them that the heart is the window through which we see the world, and that we see whatever we carry within it. Afterward, the two speak privately. Jeonghee finally tells him the truth. How miserable she is, how lonely she is. She begs him to come back to her. When he responds only by asking her to come eat with him, she becomes furious and storms off. But the lesson doesn't leave her. Later, at a celebration for Dong-hoon, one of the group challenges her about the taboo surrounding the monk. And suddenly, she sees something that she had never considered before. By making his name forbidden, by forcing her friends to pretend he never existed, she has been causing them pain too. In that moment, she lifts the taboo and declares that the monk is their memory. Without realizing it, she has absorbed the lesson he was trying to teach. By finally opening her heart to the pain she spent years denying, she becomes capable of seeing him differently. Not as the man currently making her miserable, but as a precious memory from a different time. The monk, too, comes to terms with his own truth. He had been avoiding his old neighborhood, and Jeonghee in particular, out of guilt for having disappointed the people he left behind. By the end of the series, he finally finds the courage to return. The two are able to have an honest conversation that gives them both closure and allows them both to move forward. The side characters in My Mister are one of the show's greatest strengths. Each one has a fully fleshed out character arc, complete with backstory, growth, and emotional depth. And each one embodies the show's central themes. Through Sang-hoon, Ki-hoon, Yoo-ra, and Jeonghee, My Mister continues its exploration of class, morality, honesty, and what it truly means to be happy. They aren't side characters in the traditional sense. They're essential pieces of the story's larger argument about what it means to live well. And that's one of the many reasons My Mister remains a masterpiece. If you haven't watched it yet, go check out my video on the two main characters, Dong-hoon and Lee Ji-an, and let me know in the comments, which side character was your favorite? After such a deep, beautiful, heavy, but ultimately heartwarming story, I decided to lighten things up. Next week, I'll be reviewing My Royal Nemesis, a drama that is nearly as clever as it is hilarious. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you love stories with a cast of great side characters, you might enjoy my book Beneath the Destiny Stone. Here's a quick sneak peek at the audiobook. Enjoy!
A booming laugh erupted behind him. "Ye heard the lady peasant. Move. You're tainting my ear." A tall, ridiculously handsome, broad-chested man strode up to the drunkard and face-palmed him out of the way. Not sure what to make of this newcomer, I stared with fascination. Nothing about him made sense, not his clothes, which were silk when everybody else in the tavern wore wool, nor his grin, which was full of mischief and overly intimate. "Do I know you?" "I'm sure ye do." An arrogant grin split his face. "But nay, we havena met." He gave a flourishing bow. "Sir Gavin of Keith, at your service."